G'day guys, back with the Outer Circle, and with the Adepticon reveals coming up in another week's time, I thought we'll quickly have a look through what has just sort of released, and we'll essentially go over some things I like and a big fear I have in the back of my mind. So, first things first, Dante has a new model. Let's be honest, it's pretty damn good. Yes, okay, has the crappy tactical rock, they suck. I know it, you know it, we all know it. And the weird little, it's a Primaris jump pack, therefore it has these little winglets on the back, on these little top two nacelles. Unnecessary detail. Yep, he has a crappy looking Primaris helmet with a tiny little death mask over the front. Cool. They are such minor little things that you can correct as the person who buys the model. I just don't think they're a big deal. You know, there are plenty of nice Blood Angels death masks, helmets that you can buy and you can put on instead. Clip the two little winglets off the back of his backpack, and you're laughing. Maybe you'd prefer a bigger power axe, something like that. Go for gold, fill your boots. Model looks great. So, you know, you got to choose your battles, right? My point of view as the person who runs this channel and does critique of models, you choose your battles. This is not a battle that is worth fighting, because the model on the balance is very nice, and it is a very faithful update of a 1990s model that was getting very long in the tooth. Did he need the tactical rock? No. Why is it Primaris Marine helmet on the base of the Loyalist Blood Angels tactical rock? I don't know. It's weird. The old one probably has a nicer death mask. I kind of think that you should just take that death mask off the 1990s model, put it onto this one, verbatim, instead of having the Primaris helmet, but, you know, I digress. I think it's a pretty good, pretty faithful update, and I'm on the whole pretty happy with it. On the other hand, we have Azrael, who I haven't really spoken about, and I do like him. I'm not unhappy with him. I don't care overly about the Sten bolter, as I'm going to call it, because of the side-mounted mag. None of that particularly phases me. The only thing I really dislike about Azrael here, well, there's two. First, why are his tassets, the side armor plates on the belt buckle, on the outside of the cloak? It would be better just to not have them there and just have the leather belt and assume that those pieces of armor plate are underneath the cloak, as a tabard or a surcoat is normally worn over the top of one's armor, not weaving over, under through the armor. It just looks a bit weird to me, that as a stylistic choice. But the big one is the lion helm. They've kept very faithful to the original lion helm design from the 1990s. The problem is that we have a Lionel Johnson. I just paused the video a moment in the recording to quickly open up this tab. We have a Lionel Johnson here, and, well, you can see his helmet. It's a Mark III sort of style knightly bucket helm. It would have been really cool if they'd kept that helmet and used it on the 40k incarnation here of Azrael, especially if it's just being held by the Watcher. Now I get it, the Mark VII helmet, the Angry Face Marine helm, old school Firstborn, great. But then why do we have a Firstborn helmet now on a Primaris Marine version of Azrael? Is it any more wrong than just having the Primarch's helmet? You know? And it's not the first time, actually, that this has sort of happened. If we click over here onto Games Workshop, you'll see the Cypher model here. When he was updated, they gave him a completely different style of lion sword on the back of his armor, right? Very different to the old lion sword on the back of the old Cypher. And if we actually look at the lion here with the lion sword, well, it's actually, can I get a good angle of it? It's the next question. This is actually the same sword, the same hilt, the same scheme as we see on Cypher. So they kept that consistent across the two, and I just find it very strange. It doesn't ruin the model or anything like that. It's very strange, though, that they would choose to go with, you know, they were happy to say, we don't give a shit about the legacy of this model, let's make him Primaris, and at the same time go, hey, let's keep the Mark 8 helmet, which is just wrong. because it's meant to be the Lion's helmet. I just, you know what I mean? Seems a little odd. And I don't think that changing it from the Lion's original medieval style bucket helmet here into a more angry marine face helmet really improves it in any way, shape, or form, or functionality within the universe. Anyway, they also brought an interesting article this week on the Warlord Titan history, and just to celebrate 30 years of Titanicus. And I think it's a really, really nice article. So they talk about the development, design throughout, and it's just a cool little flashback and look at history, and it doesn't, to me, look like they're trying to sell you models in any way, shape, or form. It's an actual community post on Warhammer Community, and they're so rare to see. You know, all this rich history of Games Workshop, and the only time they seem to reel out old models is when they've done an erotic reimagining of them in order to sell it to you as some sort of, Warhammer Plus subscription bonus item for subscribing for 12 months or something. The only thing that's a little odd is that they show a full-size knight next to a Warlord Titan in epic scale side by side here on an epic post. It doesn't feel right. They do mention knights in the preceding paragraph, but it doesn't look right to me that these two items are in the same photo. But apart from that, really cool article on Warhammer Community. Highly encourage people to go and read it if they're just a little bit curious. Then for Heresy Thursday, of course, the ongoing problem of, hey, we have these really interesting dreadnoughts. Let's sell you just their torsos now and force you to pay for those on top of paying for a whole plastic dreadnought, because that's a good way to spend your money. And it's not going to look at all weird when you see, a Raven Guard dreadnought with this very stylized, dotted, sort of tribal Maori tattoo going across its chest, and then it's just going to have completely plain arms and legs. It just, you can get away with that sort of thing on a Terminator, on a Power Armored Space Marine, having an upgraded torso, an upgraded head, or whatever. It works well on them, because they're so small, there's not a huge amount of detail on the arms or legs, so it doesn't detract from the model. But on a Contemptor, well, you can see up the top here, the Alpha Legion Dreadnought, look how busy the chest is. And then compare that to the legs. And on the Salamanders one, they knew that the chest was so busy, they had to try and bring back some of the art of the resin version of the Dreadnought. So they essentially copied one of the knee pads verbatim of the resin one, and they've hand-painted detailing onto there in the flame effects, and added decals to the knee just to try and give it a bit more pizzazz, to try and make it pop a little more. And then you got the Blood Angels one. It has all this gold trim going around the torso, elaborate filigree, and then everything else is just a flat red panel. Right, it looks a bit strange, okay? I think we can all agree it looks a bit strange. At the least, I think the knee pads, to help balance the lower bodies, the knee pads should probably still have been included. The original knee pads of these Contemptors. Probably the shins, if I got my choice, I would include the original shins of these different dreadnoughts, because they were very different. Some, like the Death Guard dreadnought, had a segmented Mark III style leg, and I think so did the World Eaters one, or something similar. Of course, the Iron Hands dreadnought is very, very different, because it's all like high tech and stuff. And I mean, look at the Space Wolves dreadnought here. Top left, how much stuff is going on the Space Wolves one? There's chains, and there's runes, and little shields, and teeth. Okay, all this Saxon and Viking iconography, and then it's going to be on just flat grey armour. It's going to rely on you to put a crap load of decals and do something very interesting with the paint to try and balance it out. I don't know. I'm not sold on this as a design move at all. I think it's a pretty bad move. I get why they're doing it, because they want to try and downsize the range at Forge Worlds. They have to make less models in resin, and so that they can sell more plastic models to you. So it's a win-win from their perspective. But really, it almost is a case of just go last chance to buy and get rid of the Dreadnought entirely, because I don't foresee these doing well. Anyway, enough of all that. Obviously, we have Adepticon coming up, and there's been a lot of rumours about what's going to come with Adepticon. Is it going to be a case of, oh, hey, we've I'll flick over to the 40k page here, so you know I'm on a different topic. With Adepticon coming up, the rumor is they're going to re-announce Epic, or they're going to re-announce Battlefleet Gothic, or, whatever it might be. Okay. That's interesting to me. So, let's have a look here. Armies of the Imperium, or Space Marines. Let's go Space Marines to start with. View all. I'm going to scroll to the bottom of the page. Let's see. Repulsor out of stock, Redemptor out of stock, Terminators out of stock, although we're getting new ones. Eradicators out of stock, Stalker out of stock, Devastators out of stock, Hunter out of stock, Veterans out of stock, Tech Marine out of stock, Firestrike Servo Turrets, they sold one? Okay, that's out of stock. Land Speeders, all out of stock. Bikes, all out of stock. Drop Pods even, out of stock. Alright. I'm pretty sure some people watching this have already got exactly where I'm going with this. But, benefit of the doubt and all that. What about Armies of Chaos? Chaos Space Marines. What do you got for us? Let's go down to the bottom. Abaddon's Combat Patrol, out of stock. Boarding Patrol. Noctilith Crown, out of stock. Khan, out of stock. Chaos Space Marine Combat Patrol, out of stock. Venom Crawl and Obliterators, out of stock. Kill Team Legionnaires, out of stock. Possessed, out of stock. Blooded, out of stock. Vindicators, Predators, Hellbrutes, Noise Marine, Master of Executions, Noise Marine Weapons, Chaos Land Raider, all out of stock. Okay, what about a less popular range? What is some sort of Xenos faction? Let's say Eldar, Dark Eldar. Alright, let's have a look. Eldari. Ugh, what a horrible name. Alright. Corsairs out of stock. Falcon, Night Spinner, Fire Prism, Fire Dragons, Viper, Support Weapon, Striking Scorpion, Swooping Hawk, Solitaire. Well, I hope you don't want to play any of those three aspects. They're all out of stock. Support Weapons out of stock? Wow. Okay, I'll look at one more. Let's do Dark Eldar. Actually, no. Let's do Genestealer Cults. Just for something very different. Alright, Genestealer Cults. Only 2 items out of stock. So Genestealer Cults, which I do not see a lot of, are kind of in stock. Alright, let's jump over to the Horus Heresy now. Alright, Legiones Astartes. View all. What have we got? Zephyr out of stock. Ran out of stock. Obviously, Dice are going to be out of stock. Contemptor, Ultimate Loadouts are actually getting all the weapons options. He's out of stock. Leviathan, Land Raider Proteus, Mark III Tacticals, Mark IV Tacticals, Sicarans, Leviathans, Predators, Scorpius, Jet Bikes, Contemptors on their own, Legion Heavy Weapons, Praetors, Decal Sheets. Like, what is in stock here? A lot of War Choice, a couple of Praetors, including the worst version of Ahriman to ever exist. Oh, 20-year-old Scouts. That's handy. $60 for a decal sheet. My God. Right, Spartan, Rhino, Kratos, Tartarus Terminators, Cataphracti Terminators. Hey, they're back in stock. That's cool. There is a few things in here. No Terminator weapons or anything. They're all over at Forge World still. But thank God we got the Kratos heavy tank, am I right? So, the point I am getting at here, obviously, is nothing's in stock. Okay, there is a clear problem, and look, you don't have to listen to me on this subject, but I ran a plastics factory for several years, okay? I started out as an engineer, and then I moved across into management. So I ran a plastics factory. I understand a lot about producing plastics. Was it these particular models in particular? No, it was not. It's a different type of plastic molding. But it's about as close as you can get without taking someone directly from management at Games Workshop. I think it's fair to say. When it comes to understanding the machinery, the tools, the materials involved. They have a production bottleneck. And the more crap they produce is probably straining the poor production manager and the scheduling department over there because they cannot keep up with demand. I'm going to look at some other systems now. Middle-earth and the other box games. So Hobbit miniatures, let's go Lord of the Rings miniatures, Minas Tirith. So Minas Tirith, what's in stock? Citadel Guard, Basic Warriors, the Trebuchet, Kieran and Baragon, that's cool. They were very hard to get for a long time, or Baragon in particular. The Battle Host, but Guard of the Fountain Court, hugely popular, out of stock. Faramir, Foot Mounted, out of stock. Boromir Mounted, out of stock. All the Boromir Captain of the White Tower variants, again, very popular. If you're playing Minas Tirith, you're running Faramir or Boromir in most of your lists. Aragorn is just too many points, but he's out of stock as well. Knights of Minas Tirith, very good option. If you're not running them, you're going to be running an Avenger Bolt Thrower. Right, I understand a lot about playing this game, and I do play it from time to time. Knights of the White Tower, Knight of the White Tower and Gondor Commanders out of stock, so you can see there's a few little issues being caused here. There is no captains or anything like that currently available, and banners for Minas Tirith of any kind. That's a huge problem. Not only that, they're missing a bunch of stuff from this range that's just vanished for whatever. Let's look at Rohan then. Again, another popular faction. Okay, they got Rohan Command, it's good. Guard of the Fountain, Royal Guard. Royal Guard out of stock. Royal Guard Mounted out of stock. And they've been out of stock for months. That's why I knew to come here, okay? Because I've been watching it closely. Outriders. No. Grimbold. No. Rohan Commanders on foot. No. You need to have a lot of this stuff available. Gambling and Hammer. Gambling in particular, the Rohan Royal Standard, hugely important to Rohan players. Because you want to be running him, preferably around, Aemma and Theoden. So, Lord of the Rings is suffering. What about box games? Okay, how many different box games have we got here? Warhammer Quest, Blood Bowl, Necromunda, Titanicus, Aeronautica, Kill Team, Warcry, Underworlds. Let's start with Warcry. Alright, view all. Curious if there's anything out of stock here. Only a few things at the bottom. I don't expect there to be a huge amount out of stock in specialist games. The reason why I don't expect there to be a huge amount of stock here is because there is such a small amount of stuff required for many of these specialist games. And a lot of it is just used as stuff that can also be sold for 40k. So this is more than I would have thought out of stock for Kill Team. I dare say because many of these that have gone out of stock are just going to get removed. Once they sell them for a few months, because the hype has sold them, you go, oh, heaps of people wanted the veteran guardsman of Krieg in plastic, so let's sell them as a Kill Team. Alright, people have moved on to the next Kill Team. Veteran guardsman sales have gone down, let's just not restock them. Last chance to buy, whatever. But anyway, point I'm getting at with this long, 5-minute long diatribe in the video is being, if they can't keep up with production for the core game systems like 40k, they're running out of Space Marines for crying out loud, right? That's a huge issue with production. And for the people who want to see more stuff for specialist games and more games in general, there is no way of doing that without sacrificing more of that production capacity, unless Games Workshop wants to make more models externally. Okay, and even then, they have to store them somewhere in sufficient quantity. So when I was running a factory, what I would look at, now I'm teaching people in the plastic sphere, for those who are curious, so I've moved into the university system. But when I was running a factory, it was, okay, I want to put this in a machine, this die in a machine, and run excessive product within reason, so that I don't have to put this die back in for a while. So that I can forecast roughly what I think the sales are going to be, and you do not need the sales team to come down to you and tell you what the sales are. You use your eyes you ask the people in the know who work on the factory floor, because they're not simpletons, they work in the factory, and they often know a damn sight more than the people in management do. You ask your workers, hey, how many of these have you seen sold lately? And they'll generally tell you, oh yeah, well, we ship 400 tactical squads a week. Yeah, they're constantly going out on pallets. Your dispatch people will know. And you go, okay, we're setting a lot of those out. We probably need to restock those, or I need to make more of those than I would make of something like, I don't know, extraction squad dice sets, okay, or kill zone upgrade shadow vaults. You're going to say to yourself, I need to make more tactical squads than kill zone upgrade shadow vaults because I know one of these sells significantly higher than the other. Therefore, I'm going to have that product in the machine more often, or I'm going to need to have it in the machine more often, I should say. Something like bases. I would probably have a machine that I go, that injection die machine over there, that's the base machine. It's going to be producing 25 mil, 32 mil, 40 mil, 50 mil bases all year round. And that's just its job, is to cycle through those. Okay? And I'll schedule in preventive maintenance and schedule maintenance on that machine based around the fact that I know it's going to be producing that product, and it's just constantly going to be churning that over, so I never run out of that product because everything that I make within the company is utilizing that product. Bam, done. That job looks after itself. And with my machine that's running tactical marines, I go, okay, I'm going to run tactical squads for 2 weeks. 24/7 production for 2 weeks, pumping out tactical space marines. At the end of that 2-week run, I'll have made enough that I don't have to make any more tactical marines for 3 months. Or maybe 6 months. Depends how many I make compared to what we sell. I will then put something else in that machine and go, okay, I now know that I have time up my sleeve to run other products, but I need to get back to Marines by the time that 3-month window is up. Okay, this is how scheduling and production management works. So for those who are curious and have never been in the industry or don't know a thing about it, I will allocate these resources and I will have it planned and scheduled, and I will try and get it a week or 2 in advance to my maintenance team. And it may move sideways, okay, that date. I might say, I need to put this in earlier or whatever. But as long as I give them the heads up, then the maintenance team will go, cool, no worries. Or the dice setters, I should say, as opposed to maintenance, although the two generally are hand in hand or the same department. They'll go, cool, all right, we know that we're going to pull the tactical die out at the end of this month. When that die comes out, we're going to get it straight over to the workshops. We're going to clean the die out because there'll be a small build-up of particulates in there, imperfections in the die surface because we've been running it for several weeks, and it does wear the die. Metal dies are worn by plastic in small ways. So it's going to go over, it's going to get cleaned, acetone, any moving parts in it are also going to get pulled out, cleaned, whatever, as required. These are all things that are happening in the background, right? And it doesn't mean a lot to the end consumer of this product, but when you are running the show, it means an awful, awful lot to you. And it's very unsung. The people who work in these industries, the guys who are running the machines every day, and the people who are doing the work to keep the machines running in the background are the unsung heroes of it all, as it were. You just get to sit there and enjoy your hobby without sort of thinking about, hey, a maintenance guy, a young die setter might have spent a week just polishing dies this last week so that they didn't have little surface imperfections in them and the eyes get cast correctly on the heads. So he sat there with a cotton bud and a little air grinder with a polishing bit on it, because that is someone's job at the end of the day. And of course, all of this is made just immensely harder because more and more products and bloat keeps happening. So to go back to the Space Marine example up here, okay, if I jump across back to 40k and I go to the Space Marines range, just generic Space Marines here, is 94 products. We probably remove 12, 15 of those because they'll be box sets, things like that. But when I was a little kid here, right, and I will use this example, what we had in plastic, okay, let's say 3rd edition, we had the Tactical Squad in plastic, we had Terminators in plastic, and that's regular Terminators, not Assault Terminators, who are metal blister. So there was 2 units in plastic there. We had a plastic Rhino, which had metal upgrades to make it into the Vindicator, the Razorback, the original Razorback, the Whirlwind, and the Predator did have a plastic upgrade set. So we have 4 plastic sets, as well as 4 metal sets. Scouts were metal at the time, 2 different types of blisters for Scouts, as well as Scout missile packs. So it was 3 blisters there. So we're up to about 12 products now. We had Space Marine bikes, we had Space Marine Scout bikes. So we're up to 14 products. We had 3 different types of Chaplain, 3 different types of Librarian. We had 3 different types of Space Marine Commander in power armor with Terminator armor. So all in all, with that, plus the 1 type of Land Raider, because it wasn't until Codex Black Templars brought us the metal upgraded Crusader variant. It was metal Hurricane Bolters and Emperor's Champion, all that. Until that came along, the average Space Marine army was only about 20-25 kits. Okay, there was no Ironclad Dreadnought, anything like that. There was no Furioso for Regular Marines. That was a Blood Angels thing, and it was an all-metal Dreadnought at that. Weighed a ton. Was commonly known as the Brick. Obvious reasons. It was a big metal brick. The Space Marine Command Squad. That was a set of metal blisters. Okay, and this is in 2000. Oh, well, technically, I started 3rd edition 98, but I was playing 2nd edition. Really got into the hobby in 3rd. And from 98 right through to 4th edition release of Space Marines in about 2003, maybe 2004, that was the Marine lineup. And a lot of extra stuff went plastic in the 2004 release, because that's when you got, your plastic Vindicator, plastic Predator, plastic Whirlwind, all came just before that with the Mark II Rhino, etc., etc. What I'm getting at, though, is that you have a 4-fold increase in the amount of products available in just the regular Space Marine range, and it's in plastic, okay? Half the stuff was plastic, half the stuff was metal. Now it's all plastic, and there's 4 times as much of it. And then on top of that, the community, okay, is immensely bigger than it was 20, 30 years ago. So the amount of people you're trying to sell this product to has grown exponentially. And on top of that, the armies are bigger. These armies are way bigger. Go back and look at a 2nd Ed army and have a look at the actual size of a late 2nd edition, early 3rd edition army. It's small. Like 30, 40 models would be a very big 2nd or 3rd edition army. It was not uncommon to play a game where you had 2 troops, a HQ, and 1 heavy support, or 1 fast attack, and 1 elite. And that was the army, okay? So we've made bigger armies. We've got more players by a significant factor. I would dare say there are 4 times as many people playing, whether it's due to population growth, whether it's due to exposure to the hobby, acceptability in society, whatever it might be. So you've got more people playing the hobby. You've got way more kits to produce. They need way more models for their army. And on top of that, we want to introduce a bunch of extra games. Something has to give. Something has to crack at some point in this process. Okay? And I know this is probably a long and boring video for people, but this is the shit that matters to me. Okay? And I create the videos, at the end of the day, for me. And I'm looking at this going, this is unsustainable. If I was looking after this show, this was unsustainable. I never had a problem keeping the factory I ran sustainable. And the way I did it was through, relatively balanced thinking and looking at the different departments, talking to different people on the floor, understanding the way every single part of the machine worked. Over here, it doesn't feel like that. It feels like, in my head, that the people who are producing the stuff are just being told, make this. And the people who are selling the stuff, the sales department, that is, not like the Games Workshop general stores with your local manager, they're just like, fuck, we need to make more money, we need to hit these targets that have been set for us, because we've got to keep the share price inflated, because we have to have constant growth. Just it can't be a little growth, it has to be huge amounts of growth every year. It's got to be 15, 20%, 80%, 2,000 billion% every year. We can't just have 1% growth. That's not good enough. No. So these people, the ones that have done multiple price rises on us, higher than inflation, I might add, faster than inflation, I also might add, these people are just constantly churning out the kits because they're like, fuck, we make the most money off these releases where all the whales come out singing the whale song of "Wah, blood for the blood god, oh my god, new models," and buying it all, right? And this isn't to attack the player. I really want to stress the point. They are making money off that approach, so they've got to keep doing it. They've got to keep releasing stuff, but they can't afford to take stuff away. All right, this is a big part of the problem. They're afraid to kill kits off permanently because there are repercussions in the game that they created, because they are games workshop, no matter how much they try to distance themselves from the game aspect and try to focus on them being some sort of high-end boutique collecting hobby, which they are really not. Because high-end boutique models have many more parts than Games Workshop's models, with a much higher degree of accuracy to the parts, metal parts, machine parts, whatever, and get cost less. Work that out. But it's what the market will bear, right? If the market's willing to pay it, fuck them. The market can pay it. That's their thinking. And so they're saying, let's produce more stuff, let's produce more stuff. And I do not want to see an Epic 40k or a Battlefleet Gothic at this point in time. I honestly don't. Because they need to start culling factions. They need to start cutting this game off at the knees and reining in the scope and the creep of it. Because it's long gone the days, okay? I'm struggling with Heresy to memorize everything, and I'm learning a new edition, and I make mistakes all the time. All the time. Like, I'm not ashamed about it too, because the only place to go from failing is to win. There is nothing wrong with making mistakes. It's how we learn and grow, right? And I make mistakes all the time with rules because there are so bloody many units and so many rules across so many game systems, and your mind can only retain so much, and it gets harder as you get older. When you're a kid, this shit just sticks. You read a book once, bam, it's retained. Doesn't happen when you're an adult, right? You've actually got to sit down, read through it a few times, and really digest it, especially because you tend to second guess yourself. And I'm sitting there going, I'm struggling to retain Horus Heresy. How the fuck would I retain what's going on in 40k? You can't. You can't do what we did in the early 2000s anymore. You can't go out, buy the codexes for all factions and go, hey, I'm probably going to get 4 or 5 years out of this book. It's probably not going to get FAQ'd too much. It's not really likely to change. And I can memorize what's in this book. And when I go up against something like the Dark Elder, I'm going to know exactly what incubi do, how they work, etc., etc. That does not happen anymore. Okay, it just doesn't. And that's the way things have gone. Because it's just too big and too bloated a mess. And I'm also noticing this Captain Messinius and Captain Gravis armor, that's a strikingly similar pose for two radically different models which are being lovingly hand sculpted. Definitely not shit out of a computer in 20 minutes. Yeah, I do digital design too, just as a side thing, and you can spot things that have been cut-pasted sometimes and just tweaked a little bit in the wireframe. And I'm seeing an awful similarity there. Anyway, that's it from me. I'm Mac with the Outer Circle. I've probably bored everyone to death and you all left 10 minutes ago, so I don't know who I'm doing this outro to. But to the 1 or 2 people who hung around, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I hope I've enlightened you a little bit as to some of the processes and the thinking involved. And maybe you understand a little bit more about how I think and tick at the end of the day. It's not about being negative. It's about looking at this without the rose-tinted glasses and trying to analyze the situation as it is. Anyway, that's enough from me. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. You guys are great. Look after yourselves, and I'll see you on the next video.